My name is Jenny, and I'm currently sitting on the floor of my 200 square meter walk-in closet. Scattered around me are the jewelry I'll wear at tomorrow's wedding, all of it incredibly expensive and dazzlingly bright, but my eyes are fixed on a hardcover, gold-embossed diary in my hands. I've been writing in this diary since I was 15, documenting my decade-long infatuation with Simon. Who is Simon? The groom at tomorrow's wedding. The fiancé I begged for by being persistent and using every trick in the book. He's also the only son of my family's old friends, the James family, and the golden bachelor in my parents' eyes. But now, this diary, it's not right, something is very wrong. I clearly remember that last night before going to bed, I was on the latest page, using my favorite champagne-colored ink pen, writing down my excitement and sweet anxieties about tomorrow's wedding, the elegant handwriting. With a touch of practiced grace, but now, all the words on that page have changed. It turned into printed text, cold, rigid, and devoid of emotion. The content sent chills down my spine. Jenny, wearing a custom Vera Wang wedding dress worth millions, stood in the holy church, unable to hide the smugness at the corner of her mouth. She was finally about to marry Simon, the man she had resorted to underhanded tactics and even used her family's business to coerce into marrying her. She thought this was the pinnacle of her victory, but little did she know, it was only the beginning of her descent into the abyss of hell. 3 months later, the James family's conglomerate would go bankrupt due to a meticulously planned business trap, leaving them drowning in debt. Her father, Charles James, unable to withstand the blow, would suffer a sudden cerebral hemorrhage and become paralyzed. Her mother, Linda, in an effort to raise medical funds, would sell all her jewelry and ultimately die in a car accident on her way to borrow from loan sharks. As for Jenny herself, the handwriting stops abruptly here. The next page is blank. My hand is trembling, uncontrollably trembling. It feels as if a cold hand is gripping my heart, making it hard to breathe. What is this? A prank? Who swapped my diary? Simon, or that Susan who's always hanging around Simon with her head down? No, that's not right. This diary was custom-made in Italy, with a unique lock code that only I know, and this handwriting, it's as if it appeared out of nowhere, covering my original writing. I snapped the diary shut as if discarding a red-hot branding iron. Absurd, utterly absurd. Jenny, the sole heir of the James family conglomerate, was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, getting everything I ever wanted. Simon marrying me is a union of equals, a perfect match. What bankruptcy? What family ruin, scaremongering. It must be the exhaustion from trying on wedding dresses and arranging the wedding lately that's causing hallucinations. Yes, that must be it. I irritably ran my fingers through my carefully maintained long hair and got up to pour myself a glass of red wine to calm my nerves. Just as I reached the wine cabinet, my gaze swept over a financial magazine lying open on the bar counter. Cover story interview. Simon, the heir of the Smith family group, driving innovation, leading the future. A very ordinary report, yet my gaze was magnetically drawn, firmly fixed on a small line of text next to Simon's photo. It was an inconspicuous section, introducing a preview of an upcoming new book. Title, Light, author, a name I haven't heard of. What caught my attention wasn't the title, nor the author, it was the small, almost negligible synopsis below. Tells the inspiring urban love story of Susan, a resilient and kind-hearted ordinary girl who, after enduring the injustices of a wealthy family and the relentless bullying from the villainous Jenny, ultimately finds true love with Simon, the heir of the Smith family, and achieves career success through her own efforts and warm character. She also witnesses the downfall and destruction of the villainess and her family as they reap what they sowed. Boom, it felt like a thunderbolt exploded in my mind. Jenny, Simon, Susan, the villainess, the family's destruction. Every single word matched perfectly with the eerie printed content in my diary. The crystal glass in my hand fell onto the carpet with a sharp crack, and the dark red wine quickly spread, staining it like blood. A chill shot from the soles of my feet straight to the top of my head. It wasn't an illusion. That diary predicted my fate. I frantically lunged toward my laptop, my fingers trembling as I typed into the search bar, light. Novel, no relevant information found. It was just a preview. The book hasn't been published yet. I collapsed onto the expensive wool carpet, the alcohol soaking through my silk nightgown, cold and sticky, an even more terrifying thought seized me. If that diary, the predictions are true, then the world I live in is a book, and I am that destined to meet a tragic end, universally despised villainess in the book. Is that Susan, the one who's the female lead, the one who always wears a faded cotton dress? Works at the coffee shop downstairs from Simon's company, with eyes like a deer, moist, timid, yet hiding a hint of stubbornness. I've seen her a few times. Every time she sees me, she instinctively lowers her head, her fingers twisting the edge of her apron, her voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. Simon seemed a bit different with her. He would patiently listen to her speak, and occasionally, when she clumsily spilled coffee, he would gently say, "It's okay." At the time, I just found it irritating, like seeing a stubborn speck of dust on my shoe. I even accidentally had a friend go to that cafe to pick a fight, hinting to the owner that keeping her around would affect the mood of certain high-end customers. Later, she didn't work there anymore. I thought I was being fired. Now that I think about it, according to the plot, this is probably the beginning of my villainous path. A tremendous sense of absurdity and an even greater sense of fear washed over me like a tidal wave. Everything I took pride in, my family background, my looks, the luxurious life that came so easily to me, my love for Simon that I was so sure of, all of it was built on an extremely fragile foundation. I was the antagonist, preordained by the author of this book, to serve as a stepping stone to highlight the female lead's genuine kindness and beauty. 3 months from now, all of this will be gone. My father will be paralyzed, my mother will die tragically, and I will lose everything, perhaps even face a worse fate. The abrupt blank space in the diary is like a silently grinning mouth, waiting to devour me. No way, absolutely not. Jenny can be arrogant, can be willful, and can even play a few tricks to get Simon, but I cannot let my parents suffer such a miserable fate because of me. I cannot let the century-old foundation of the James family be destroyed by my hands. Even if this is a world in a book, even if I am the villainess, I will change my destiny. First, this marriage absolutely must not happen. Marrying Simon is like stepping on the first brick leading straight to hell. In the early morning, sunlight streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling window, stinging my eyes. I hadn't slept all night. My face was as pale as a ghost, and my carefully styled hair was a mess. But my mind was unusually clear. "Jenny, why do you look so pale? Are you too nervous?" My mom, Linda, pushed the door open and was startled by my appearance. Then she lovingly touched my face. "Don't worry, Mom is here for everything. Our Jenny will definitely be the most beautiful bride today." Looking at the genuine concern on her well-maintained face and thinking about the cold words describing her death in a car accident, my heart felt as if it had been sharply pricked by a needle. "Mom," my throat was dry, and my voice was hoarse. "What's wrong, honey?" She looked at me with concern. The words caught in my throat. How could I say it? Tell Mom not to go out, or she'll be hit by a car and die. Tell Dad to be careful, or he'll have a stroke and become paralyzed in 3 months. Say that our family is going to go bankrupt. They would think I'm crazy, or that I have pre-wedding anxiety. Nothing. I forced a smile that looked worse than crying. "I'm just a little scared, silly child." My mother laughed, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. "Marrying Simon has been your dream since you were little, so what is there to fear? Simon is steady and reliable, and the Smith family has been close friends with ours for generations. We know each other inside and out. Don't worry, if he ever dares to bully you, your father and I will be the first to stand up for you." Steady and reliable, know each other inside and out, thinking of how Simon in the book was cold and ruthless toward the villainous Jenny after James's family went bankrupt. Even kicking her while she was down, I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. The one he truly loved was always the pure and kind-hearted female lead, Susan, who shone brightly even in adversity, and I, Jenny, am just the repulsive stumbling block he was forced to marry due to family pressure. "Mom, the wedding," I took a deep breath, my nails digging into my palms. "I want to call it off." "What?" My mother's smile instantly froze, her voice rising sharply. "Jenny, what nonsense are you talking? It's already this close to the day. The invitations have all been sent out. The guests are arriving this afternoon. The hotel, the wedding arrangements, everything is ready. What kind of joke is this?" Her reaction was exactly what I had expected. "I'm not joking." I lifted my head, trying to make my gaze appear resolute. I don't want to marry Simon anymore. What's the reason? My mother's face turned ashen. Jenny, did Simon do something to hurt you? Tell me. No, I shook my head. It's me, I don't love him anymore. The reason sounded laughably feeble, as expected. My mother didn't believe it at all. Don't love him anymore. You chased after him for 10 years. How much have you done for him? And now you just say you don't love him. Jenny, are you out of your mind? Or has someone been influencing you? Her sharp gaze swept across the room, as if trying to pinpoint the person who had instigated me. No one instigated me. I thought of it myself. I insisted, Mom, just let me be willful one last time, cancel the wedding, and I'll bear all the losses. You'll bear them, with what? My mother's chest heaved with anger. This isn't just about money, it's about the reputation of the James and Smith families. It's about your own reputation, calling off the wedding at the last minute. What will people think of the James family? What will they think of you? Who would dare marry you in the future? I don't care. I raised my voice as well. I don't care what others think. I don't care about reputation anymore. All right. I just want to live. I just want our whole family to live well. The last sentence was almost shouted out, carrying a despair and fear I hadn't even realized I felt. My mother froze, looking at me with shock and uncertainty. Jenny, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? What nonsense are you talking? What do you mean by wanting to live? Seeing the worry and confusion in her eyes, all my strength seemed to drain away in an instant. No, this forceful approach won't work. I know my parents all too well. They love me, but they love the James family's reputation and legacy even more, without any evidence, based solely on my saying, I don't want to marry anymore, and a few crazy words. They would never agree to cancel this marriage alliance that involves the interests of two top families. If I confront them head-on, I'll just be labeled as mentally ill and locked away. By then, I won't be able to do anything but watch helplessly as the plot moves toward that terrible ending. I need to stay calm. I must stay calm, Mom. I lowered my head dejectedly, my voice weary. I'm sorry. I might have been too nervous, didn't sleep well last night, and was talking nonsense. The wedding, let's proceed as planned. My mother visibly relaxed, but the worry in her eyes grew even stronger. She walked over and hugged me, gently patting my back. Good child. Don't be afraid. Mom is here. It's just pre-wedding anxiety, very normal. It'll be better after today. Okay. In her embrace, my body remained stiff. Fear, like icy vines, wraps around the heart, tightening relentlessly. The wedding cannot be cancelled. Then, the plan to change fate must be carried out urgently after the wedding, before the plot officially begins. And my core strategy to change fate is simple and straightforward. Stay away from the male and female leads, and protect the James family, Simon. I don't want him anymore. Whoever wants him can have him. Susan, you're the female lead. You and Simon are locked together, and I've swallowed the key. I absolutely won't interfere, as long as I step back. Stop being that villainess who drives the plot. Stop bullying Susan, and stop giving Simon reasons to despise me and seek revenge on the James family. Then won't the so-called commercial traps and family ruin be avoided? Yes, that must be it. As long as I withdraw, the plot will collapse. Sunlight streamed through the colorful stained glass windows of the church, casting a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. The organ played the solemn and sacred wedding march. I walked arm in arm with my father, Charles James, step by step, on the carpet strewn with white rose petals. The guests' eyes were fixed on me, filled with admiration, envy, and blessings. My father turned his head to look at me, his eyes full of pride and reluctance. At the end of the aisle, Simon stood tall and handsome in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. He looked like a prince straight out of a fairy tale, but I knew he was not my prince. He was my death warrant. On my face was the flawless, bridal smile of happiness, but inside, my heart was frozen. Every step felt like walking on the edge of a blade. This path leading to Simon, in the book, was a one-way street to destruction. My father solemnly placed my hand into Simon's. His hand was dry and warm, carrying a sense of commanding power. I could feel the strength in his fingertips, like a silent declaration. The officiant began to recite the vows. Mr. Simon, do you take Miss Jenny to be your wife, to love and cherish her, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, till death do you part. Simon's gaze fell upon my face, deep as the ocean, revealing little emotion. His thin lips parted, and his voice was steady and strong. I do, Miss Jenny, do you take Mr. Simon to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part. All eyes were focused on my face. I felt Simon's hand, holding mine, tighten for a brief moment. I lifted my head, meeting his gaze and the stares of all the guests in the room. On my face bloomed a smile even brighter and more radiant than before, as if I had just heard the sweetest promise in the world. Then, in a voice that was crystal clear and tinged with a tremble of happiness, I spoke my answer. Do. As the words fell, I noticed Simon seemed to exhale almost imperceptibly, and his grip on my hand loosened slightly. A wave of congratulatory applause erupted from the guest seats. No one knew that inside, I was screaming wildly, I'm willing to stay as far away from you two protagonists as possible. I'm willing to save my own life and my parents' lives, exchange rings, kiss the bride. Simon's kiss was light, landing on my lips with a faint scent of aftershave, polite yet distant. I was like the most perfect bride, shyly lowering my gaze, my heart utterly unmoved, even feeling a bit eager to wipe my mouth. The ceremony ended, and the guests moved to the banquet hall. Under the enormous crystal chandelier, elegantly dressed guests mingled, and glasses clinked in toasts. I held on to Simon's arm, mechanically playing the role of Mrs. Smith, accepting all kinds of blessings and envious glances. Champagne glasses were raised one after another. With a constant stream of people toasting, Simon shielded me from quite a few drinks. His manners were impeccable, gentle and considerate, making anyone who saw him praise him as a wonderful husband. Only I knew what cold calculation lay beneath this facade of gentleness and care. As written in the book, his deep-seated resentment toward me and the James family ran deep. Finally making it to the end of the banquet, I felt my face had stiffened from all the smiling. Tired? Simon asked me softly, tilting his head, his tone gentle. Should I have the driver take you back to rest first? There are still some elders I need to socialize with here. Look, how considerate. I couldn't have asked for more. Okay, I nodded obediently, forcing a grateful smile. Don't overwork yourself either. Sitting in the Rolls-Royce heading back to the new home, isolated from the noise outside, I finally let out a long, silent sigh of relief. The first step is finally completed, married, but this is only a temporary measure. A smokescreen to deceive everyone. From now on, I will execute my survive and protect the family plan. Step 1. Physically distance yourself from the male lead, Simon. The new house is the Smith family's luxurious duplex penthouse located in a prime downtown area, with extravagant decor and an unbeatable view. But as soon as I entered, I headed straight for the largest master bedroom. Good. Simon doesn't have many belongings, just a few changes of clothes. I quickly dragged my suitcase inside and then started huffing and puffing as I moved my things into the guest room next door. Walk-in closet, too big. I'll let him have it. Anyway, I have so many clothes, bags, and shoes that the guest room's closet is more than enough for me to stuff everything in. King-sized bed, too soft. He might not be used to it. The guest room's bed is a bit smaller, but it has a top-tier mattress, which is just right for me. Dressing table, too bulky. It takes up too much space. The guest room's mirror has built-in lighting. Perfect. Simon returned late at night. He carried a faint scent of alcohol and tobacco. Noticing that the master bedroom now held only a few of his belongings, while a sliver of light seeped from under the guest room door next door, his footsteps faltered. He walked to the guest room door and knocked. I opened the door, wearing a fluffy pajama set, a face mask on, and holding a tablet playing a comedy show, intentionally with the volume turned up a bit too loud. Something wrong? I asked indistinctly, the face mask restricting my mouth movements. Simon's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, as if he was somewhat unaccustomed to my homely appearance. He glanced into the guest bedroom, which was crammed with my belongings. You sleep here? He asked, his tone unreadable. Yep. I pointed toward the master bedroom. That one's too big. I get scared sleeping alone. Besides, you have fewer things, so it's easier to move. This one's just right. Cozy. I like it. I tried to make my tone sound natural and innocent. Simon looked at me in silence, his gaze somewhat deep, as if he were scrutinizing something. I felt a bit unnerved by his stare, and the skin under my face mask tightened. A few seconds later, he spoke indifferently, "As you wish." Then he turned and walked straight back to the master bedroom. Bang! The door to the master bedroom closed. I leaned against the doorframe of the guest bedroom and let out a long sigh. That was close, but successfully separated. Stay away from the male lead. Mission accomplished. Step 2, actively avoid and never provoke the female lead. Susan, I remember in the book, my first official act of mischief as the villainess was at a high-level dinner hosted by Simon's company. I deliberately made things difficult for Susan, who was working as a server, and accidentally spilled red wine on her, causing her public humiliation. This escalated the conflict and deepened Simon's disgust toward me. This kind of ridiculous plot must be nipped in the bud. A few days later, Simon indeed mentioned that there was an important industry cocktail party in the evening and that he needed me to attend as his +1. Oh, sure, I agreed readily. Simon seemed a bit surprised by my straightforwardness and glanced at me. That evening, I chose the most understated and conservative champagne-colored gown, paired with the smallest pearl earrings, striving to make myself as inconspicuous as possible. The cocktail party was held in the ballroom of a 5-star hotel in the city center. Elegant attire and glamorous gatherings, a constellation of celebrities. Simon, as the central figure, was immediately surrounded by people exchanging pleasantries the moment he entered. I hung onto his arm, maintaining a standard smile, and my face began to stiffen again. My eyes scanned the room like radar. Here it comes. Near the corner of the drinks counter, I spotted that familiar figure, Susan. She was wearing the hotel's standard black server uniform, with a slender figure and her hair neatly tied up at the back of her head. She kept her head down, carefully wiping the countertop with a somewhat restrained motion, like a little quail that had mistakenly wandered into a swan lake. That's her, the female lead in the book who will eventually step over the bones of my James family and fly off into the sunset with Simon. I instinctively tightened my grip on my handbag. Simon seemed to notice my stiffness and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable?" "No." I immediately let go and forced a smile. "It's just a bit stuffy. I'm going to the restroom to touch up my makeup." "Must stay away from the battlefield." "Okay." Simon nodded. I almost fled in a panic, heading toward the restroom in the direction farthest from where Susan was. High heels stepped on the thick carpet, making no sound. I lowered my head, quickened my pace, and silently repeated, "You can't see me, you can't see me. The villainess has logged off. Do not disturb." Oops, a muffled exclamation, accompanied by the crisp shattering of glassware. My heart skipped a beat. No way. I've already stayed this far away. Looking back, the sound didn't come from Susan's direction, but from the other side. A young waitress, probably bumped into by a hurried guest, had dropped several glasses of champagne from her tray. The wine and shattered glass were scattered all over the floor. She stood there, pale with fright, completely at a loss. A few gazes were drawn from the surroundings. Simon also noticed the commotion over there, and his brows furrowed slightly. At that moment, I saw Susan quickly walk over from her corner. She swiftly crouched down and began picking up the broken pieces on the floor, while softly comforting the frightened colleague. "Don't panic, Lisa, it's okay, I'll clean this up. Go get a new glass and some wine from the back." Her voice was not loud, but it was clear, carrying a strangely soothing power. The waitress named Lisa gave her a grateful look and hurried away. Susan lowered her head, focused on cleaning up, her movements swift and careful to avoid cutting her hands on the fragments. Simon's gaze, cutting through the crowd, landed on the slender figure crouched on the ground, quietly handling the sudden situation. His expression was one I had never seen before, so focused, with a hint of barely noticeable admiration. A cold laugh rose within me. See that, the protagonist's halo is activated, resilience, kindness, and composure in the face of danger, such wonderful qualities. And what about me? According to the original plot, I should be strutting over right now, scolding the server who broke the glass, or even worse, redirecting the blame onto Susan, who accidentally passed by. Humph. I turned around and walked into the restroom without looking back. Facing the large vanity mirror, I looked at my reflection, perfectly made up, yet with hollow eyes. Perfect. Avoided. The first little bomb of the plot has been successfully defused. Although the way Simon looked at Susan made me a bit uncomfortable, after all, nominally, he's still my husband. The thought of my survival and family protection plan made that discomfort vanish instantly. Look, all you want, the sooner you two hit it off, the better, so I won't have to find ways to bring you together later. Step 3, observe discreetly to ensure the plot doesn't deviate because of me. Although I decided to stay away from the battlefield, I couldn't just turn a blind eye. After all, the traps in the book were aimed at the James family, so I had to stay vigilant at all times. Using the excuse of wanting to spend more time with my parents after the wedding, I frequently visited the James family villa. My father, Charles James, is a typical Confucian businessman, calm, wise, and extremely sensitive to numbers. My mother, Linda, is more outgoing, passionate about socializing and charity. Dad, how's the company been lately? No troubles, right? I asked casually while peeling an apple for him. My dad looked up from his financial newspaper, adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, and chuckled. What trouble could there be? Everything's going smoothly. What? Is our Jenny starting to care about the company's affairs now? Just asking. I handed him the peeled apple. I've just been reading the news, and it seems like the international economic situation has been a bit volatile lately. Minor fluctuations, nothing major. My dad took a bite of the apple, his tone relaxed. Our James family's foundation is solid, but you, now that you're married, focus more on Simon and don't always run back to your parents' home. It doesn't look proper. I miss you guys, I said, pouting. Stop it, my mom scolded, setting down a fruit platter and giving me a light tap. Simon is so busy. As his wife, you should be more considerate. By the way, it's your dad's birthday next week. We're having a small gathering at home. Let Simon know and make sure he finds the time to come. Dad's birthday party. My heart suddenly tightened. I seem to recall the book mentioning that one of the triggers for the James family's downfall was my father getting extremely upset at an important family gathering. I can't remember the exact details. Mom, for Dad's birthday, can't we just have a simple family dinner? Let's not make it too complicated. I tentatively suggested. Absolutely not. My mother immediately objected. It's your father's 60th birthday, and many of his old friends and business partners have already asked about it. How can we not invite them? Don't worry, it won't be a big affair, just some close acquaintances. My heart sank. It seems unavoidable. I'll have to brace myself and face it with all my might. On the night of the birthday party, the James family's villa was brightly lit, as expected. The guests were all close family friends and important business partners. Simon also came. Wearing a well-tailored dark gray suit, exuding an air of elegance, he brought an appropriate gift, offered his congratulations, and behaved impeccably. Throughout the event, I was like a highly alert groundhog, ears perked up and eyes wide open, watching every corner and every person who spoke with my father. Halfway through the banquet, the atmosphere was harmonious. My father was chatting and laughing with a few old friends at a tea table in the side hall. I held a glass of juice, pretending to admire the night view by the floor-to-ceiling window while actually keeping a close eye on the situation over there. A slightly overweight middle-aged man in a dark blue suit, with a somewhat greasy smile, walked over holding a wine glass. I knew this man. His name was Frank. He was the owner of an important downstream supplier for the James family's conglomerate and usually tried hard to curry favor with my father. Mr. Charles James, may your fortune be as boundless as the East Sea and your longevity as enduring as the southern mountains. Frank's voice boomed with a flattering smile. Let me propose a toast to you. My dad smiled and picked up his teacup. Thank you, Mr. Frank. I appreciate the thought, but I won't drink. I'm getting old, and the doctor told me to drink less. Oh, Mr. Charles James, you're as strong as an ox. What's one glass of red wine? Frank persisted, leaning slightly forward, closer to my dad, and lowering his voice a bit. Mr. Charles James, I heard, HY is also eyeing that land in the west of the city. They have very wild connections, so you must be under considerable pressure, right? The smile on my dad's face faded slightly, but he remained composed. Business matters are all about individual capability. Exactly, exactly. Frank nodded repeatedly, his eyes darting around, and his voice dropped even lower. But Mr. Charles James, I heard some rumors. HY seems to have an unusual relationship with, well, someone high up. They've declared that they are determined to get that land. You see, would you like me to help you make a connection? I know, Mr. Frank, my father interrupted him, his tone turning serious. The James family runs its business on integrity and strength. We don't dabble in underhanded methods. Thank you for your kindness. Frank had been gently rebuffed, and his face flushed with embarrassment. He gave an awkward smile and said, "Of course, Mr. Charles James, you are a man of high principles." I spoke out of turn. "Truly, please don't take it to heart." He quickly downed the wine in his glass and slunk away. My father picked up his teacup and took a sip, his brow slightly furrowed. It was clear that the man's words had dampened his mood a little. Hiding behind the curtain, I saw everything clearly, my palms drenched in sweat. Frank, HY Group, the land in the west of the city. These keywords struck my mind like lightning. I remember now, it was mentioned in the book. A crucial part of James' family's bankruptcy was their failure in the competition for the land in the west of the city. HY Group set a trap using extremely despicable means, causing them not only to suffer heavy losses but also to get entangled in lawsuits. This led to banks withdrawing loans, and their funding chain instantly collapsed. And that scoundrel Frank was a pawn planted by HY to test the waters and stir up trouble even before the James family's downfall. Later, he even kicked them while they were down, leading the charge to turn against the James family. Crisis. This is definitely a sign that the plot is kicking off. A chill ran up my spine. No, I have to warn my dad right away. I took a deep breath, composed my expression, and walked over with the juice in hand. "Dad," I said with a sweet smile, sitting down next to him. "What are you and Mr. Frank talking about? You seem a bit upset." My dad's expression softened when he saw me, and he patted my hand. "It's nothing, just business matters. Don't worry about it, Dad." I carefully chose my words, trying to sound both innocent and concerned. I think I heard Mr. Frank mention something about HY Group, and the land in the west of the city. I recently heard Simon mention it in passing, and it seems like HY doesn't have the best reputation. Their methods aren't exactly above board. If you're competing with them, you really need to be careful. I shifted the blame to Simon. After all, he's well informed, and my dad is more likely to believe him. My dad was indeed taken aback for a moment, then looked thoughtful. "Simon said that too." "Yeah," I nodded emphatically, wearing an expression that said, "My husband is the best." "He mentioned that HY has a complicated background and advised you to keep your guard up so you don't get tricked." My father was silent for a few seconds, then nodded. I understand." Simon is thoughtful. His gaze toward me held a bit more warmth. "Our Jenny has grown up and knows how to care for her father." I breathed a small sigh of relief. I hope my reminder will be of some use. After the banquet ended, all the guests were seen off. My parents were a bit tired, but in a good mood. I held my mom's arm as we went upstairs and casually asked, "Mom, how is our family's financial situation? There aren't any large loans, right?" My mom chuckled. "What's with you today, asking so much about the company?" "Don't worry, everything's fine. We just closed a big overseas deal recently, and the cash flow is more than sufficient. Your dad has always been steady and never takes reckless risks." Steady, never takes reckless risks. In the book, the James family fell into a trap that seemed stable, but was actually carefully designed. I was so anxious I could hardly stand it, but I couldn't say it outright. "Mom," I hugged her arm and acted coquettishly, "I'm just a little worried. Look at the news. So many big companies collapse out of nowhere. Dad is getting older too, so maybe we should scale back a bit, not take on such big projects. We have enough money to get by. What matters most is our family's safety and well-being." My mom was amused by my sudden maturity and pinched my cheek, saying, "Silly girl, have you really grown up, starting to care about your parents now? Don't worry, your father knows what he's doing." The James family's ship is steady, stable, but in the book, it can flip in an instant. Lying in bed, I toss and turn restlessly. I reminded them, but it didn't seem to have much effect. My parents' deep-rooted confidence and their disregard for the invisible power of the plot left me with a profound sense of helplessness. No, just being on the defensive isn't enough. I have to take the initiative, find that critical trap, and dismantle it before it goes off. Time is running out. There are less than 2 months left until the 3 months later, predicted in the diary. My survival and family protection plan has entered the most critical and intense phase. Using the excuse of wanting to learn something to help the family, I persistently persuaded my dad to give me the honorary title of special assistant to the chairman at James Family Group, allowing me to freely come and go from the company. I go to work on time every day with a clear goal, the land in the west of the city, and all projects related to the HY Group. My dad just thought I was acting on a whim or trying to stick closer to him, so he smiled and let me have my way. I used my position to spend time in the archives and with the project team. Reading documents made my head spin, and listening to the professional jargon left me completely confused, but I managed to catch a few key terms: the West Eco New City Project, Core Plot C07, Floor Area Ratio, Supporting Facility Requirements, Bid Bond, Consortium Bidding. I vaguely remember the book mentioning that HY Group exploited a seemingly insignificant loophole in the bidding rules to set up an extremely sinister trap. They first deliberately drove up the land price, causing James's family to secure this hot property at a price far higher than expected. Then, just as James's family had invested heavily to complete the preliminary planning and was about to start construction, HY colluded with someone from a regulatory agency and suddenly produced a so-called internal document, pointing out that one of the requirements for the land's development included a clause for building a provincial-level Model 9-year compulsory education school at no cost. This clause was written very vaguely in the initial bidding documents, only mentioning that educational facilities must be provided, with no specific standards detailed. HY used their connections to interpret the clause later, forcibly raising the standard to that of a provincial-level model school. The cost difference for this amounted to billions. James's family was caught off guard. They either had to accept the loss and invest an astronomical sum, which would instantly strain or even break their cash flow, or breach the contract, abandon the land, and lose all the huge deposits and planning fees they had already invested, while also facing a credibility crisis and massive fines. No matter which path is chosen, it will be a painful and costly ordeal. Meanwhile, HY has long prepared the role of a rescuer, waiting to snap up bargains at low prices. What a vicious scheme. I have scoured all the bidding documents, draft contracts, meeting minutes, related to the C07 land plot. Indeed, in the original appendix to the pre-application for land use rights transfer, regarding the co-construction requirements, there was only one line of vague small print. The successful bidder must, in accordance with planning requirements, gratuitously co-construct educational facilities of a corresponding scale, specific standards subject to final approval. However, tucked away in a corner of a later, supplementary risk assessment report submitted to my dad by the project team, was an inconspicuous, suggested reference for provincial demonstration school co-construction standards issued by a certain authoritative consulting agency. It meticulously listed various ultra-high standards and estimated costs. This report was casually categorized as reference material and did not receive sufficient attention. My dad's prudence made him overly trust processes and documents, yet overlook the hidden sting in the details. Found it. My heart was pounding wildly as I held on to that damned reference material, feeling like I was clutching a red-hot piece of coal, and rushed into my dad's office. "Dad, look at this." I slammed the document onto his massive mahogany desk, my voice trembling with excitement and nervousness. My dad, who had been reviewing documents, was startled by my sudden entrance and frowned. "Jenny, what's with all this frantic rushing? What is this?" "West City Plot C07, with a school included." I pointed at the report. "Dad, these standards are problematic. It's a trap, a pit dug by HY. My father picked up the report, glanced at it, and frowned even more deeply. "This document, I know about it. It's just an industry reference suggestion, not a mandatory standard. The final standards will be clearly defined in the Land Transfer Contract Supplementary Agreement, jointly reviewed by the Planning Committee and the Education Bureau. We've been following up and haven't found any issues. That's exactly why it's terrifying. There are no issues now." I was so anxious I could barely speak coherently. HY must have bribed someone. At the critical moment of signing the supplementary agreement, they'll suddenly strike and insist on this provincial standard. will be at a disadvantage. My father put down the report, took off his glasses, and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. He looked at me with a mix of exhaustion and helplessness. Jenny, have you been too stressed lately? Where did you hear these baseless rumors? Business is like a battlefield. Competition is normal. HY is a competitor. But they're not as underhanded as you think. We have a professional team handling risk assessment and legal oversight. We won't easily fall into a trap. Dad, just trust me this once. I was on the verge of tears. Really, I have inside information. It's very reliable. HY's methods are dirty. This piece of land is a hot potato. Let's give it up. Or, before signing the supplementary agreement, we must make the construction standards crystal clear in black and white. There can be no ambiguity. My father looked at me and remained silent for a long time. Only my rapid breathing could be heard in the office. Finally, he sighed, his tone softening slightly but still carrying an air of unquestionable authority. Jenny, Dad knows you care about the company, but business matters are no joke. This piece of land is crucial to the group's strategic layout for the next 5 years. The initial investment is huge, and we can't just give up lightly because of your hunch. Leave professional matters to the professionals. You're new to all this, and there are many intricacies you don't understand yet. Don't worry about it unnecessarily. He picked up the intercom. Secretary Jack, come in for a moment. Secretary Jack entered promptly. Take this report. My father pointed to the document on the desk titled, Proposed Reference for Provincial Model School Construction Standards. Mark it clearly with, for industry trend reference only. Not to be used as a basis for decision-making. Distribute it to the West City project team, and remind them to closely follow up on the final approval opinions from the Education Bureau and the Planning Committee. It is essential to obtain a clear, actionable official standard document before signing the supplementary agreement. Yes, Mr. Charles James. Secretary Jack picked up the report and left. My dad looked at me. This should handle it, right? I'll keep an eye on it, all right? Go do your own thing, and don't overthink it. I opened my mouth, watching as my dad put his glasses back on and lowered his head to look at the documents. All my words got stuck in my throat. He took it seriously, but not enough. He only raised the risk level of this report and increased the attention on it. But we are still far from completely avoiding the risks. HY's methods are definitely not that simple. They will surely tamper with the final approval stage. A wave of immense frustration and panic washed over me. I was like someone who knew a tsunami was coming, desperately shouting, but no one believed me. I could only watch helplessly as that colossal wave of destruction slowly rose on the horizon. Day by day, time passed. I was like an ant on a hot pan, my nerves on edge every day, closely monitoring every development of the West City project. The project team reported. Communication with the Education Bureau and the Planning Commission is going smoothly, and the construction standards are largely in line with those of a regular municipal model school. There shouldn't be any major issues. My father, upon hearing the report, visibly relaxed and even said to me with a smile, "See, I told you you were overthinking it." My heart, however, sank to the depths. Smooth sailing, the smoother it seems, the more it feels like the calm before the storm. HY must be brewing up a big move, as expected, with only 3 days left until the deadline stipulated in the land transfer contract. An explosive piece of news, like a thunderclap, shook the entire city. Vice Mayor Johnson, in charge of urban construction, was reported by real name for possessing huge unexplained assets and leading a corrupt lifestyle. The provincial disciplinary inspection team moved in overnight and took him away directly, and this Vice Mayor Johnson is one of the main promoters and final decision makers of the West Eco City project. More importantly, the routine suggestions regarding the standards for building supporting schools, which had been well communicated with the James family, were coordinated and finalized under Vice Mayor Johnson's leadership. With his downfall, everything he had approved instantly became unresolved cases, full of uncertainties and doubts. HY Group acted with astonishing speed. On the very next morning after Vice Mayor Johnson was taken away, a strongly worded document stamped with the red seal of the Municipal Education Development Research Center, a semi-official but influential institution, was delivered to the desks of James Family Group and the Municipal Planning Commission. The document's title was strikingly clear: Expert Review Opinions on the Construction Standards of Educational Facilities in Plot C. 07 of the West Ecological New City. the core content was singular. Based on the strategic positioning of the West New City and the projected future population influx, the school to be built in this plot must meet provincial model school standards, otherwise, it would fail to meet the educational development needs of the area. The Planning Commission was strongly advised to enforce this requirement. Attached at the end of the document was a long list of so-called expert signatures. This blow was swift and ruthless, the timing was perfectly executed. Just as the originally designated decision-maker had fallen from power, leaving everyone in a state of panic, and with the new leadership not yet in place, this document, cloaked in the guise of expert validation and development needs, suddenly pushed James's family to the edge of a cliff. Accept it, that would mean incurring billions in additional construction costs out of thin air. Inevitably breaking the capital chain, not accepting it, breach of contract. Billions in upfront deposits and investments would all go down the drain, and we would face severe consequences such as land reclamation, fines, and a ruined reputation. Banks would immediately withdraw loans, and partners would terminate contracts one after another. Whichever path is chosen, it leads to a dead end. When the news came, my father was presiding over an important quarterly meeting, when the secretary rushed into the conference room, pale-faced, and placed the document in front of him. My father only glanced at it before his face instantly turned ashen, and his body swayed. "Dad," I screamed and rushed over. The next second, my father's tall, sturdy body toppled backward. "Mr. Charles James, call an ambulance." The meeting room was in complete chaos. My world, in that moment, crumbled and fell apart. The prophecy in the diary coiled around my neck like a cold, venomous snake, unable to withstand the shock. Suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage, left paralyzed in bed. The hospital, the pungent smell of disinfectant, the red light in the emergency room was so bright it made one's heart race. When my mom got the news and rushed over, her makeup was smudged. She grabbed my hand, her nails digging into my flesh. "Jenny, how is your dad?" How could he? He was fine when he left this morning." I was ice cold all over, unable to speak, just staring fixedly at that tightly shut door. Simon also came. Walking hurriedly with a furrowed brow, he glanced at my mom and me, slumped on the bench, said nothing, and went aside to make a call, probably to get more information. The long wait was agonizing, every second felt like an eternity. The red light finally went out. The doctor came out with a grave expression. "Mr. Charles James suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage. The bleeding was significant, and the location was not favorable. The surgery has temporarily stabilized his vital signs, but he is not yet out of the danger zone. Moreover, due to the pressure on the motor nerves from the bleeding, even if he wakes up, the likelihood of paralysis is very high." My mother's vision went black, and she fainted. Another wave of chaos ensued. I stood frozen in place, as if my soul had been drained away. My mind was filled only with the cold, printed words from the diary. Paralyzed in bed. What's next? Sold all the jewelry, and ultimately died in a car accident on the way to borrow a loan shark. No way. I shuddered violently, forcing myself to snap out of the immense grief and fear with a sliver of clarity. Dad has fallen, but he's not dead yet. Mom is still here. The James family isn't finished yet. I must hold on. I must prevent the tragedy that follows. Now is not the time to cry. I forcefully wiped the tears from my face, my gaze turning fierce. Frank. And all those jackals and wolves who kick someone when they're down, want to swallow up James's family. Dream on. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think calmly. There are 3 urgent matters at hand. Save Dad's life and ensure he receives the best treatment. Stabilize Mom's emotions. Absolutely cannot let her borrow from loan sharks. Save James's home. Deal with the crisis of the West City project. I walked over to Simon, who was still on the phone. He had just hung up, and his face didn't look too good either. "Simon," I began, my voice hoarse but unusually calm, "you know about my father's condition." Simon looked at me, his expression somewhat complicated, and nodded. "I need your help," I said, looking directly into his eyes without any pleading, just stating the facts. "First, contact the best neurologists. If not domestic, then international. Money is no issue. James's family can cover it. Second, help me keep my mother stable. Have someone watch her. Never leave her side. she must not leave the hospital, and under no circumstances should she be allowed to take out any loans. Simon clearly hadn't expected me to make such direct demands, and with such clarity, he fell silent for a few seconds, as if weighing the situation. Jenny, the West City project is quite troublesome. He tried to say something. The West City project is my business. I interrupted him, my tone resolute. You just need to help me with these two things. Consider it a favor. Jenny, oh you. Simon looked at me deeply. Probably having never seen such a calm, even cold, side of me. In the end, he nodded. All right, I'll contact the expert. As for Mom, I'll have Lucy, their old nanny, come over to keep her company. Thank you. I uttered the two words, devoid of any warmth. After arranging things at the hospital, I turned and left without looking back. Where are you going? Simon asked from behind. Back to the company. I replied without turning around, at the headquarters of the James Families Corporation. A gloomy atmosphere prevailed. The news of the chairman's sudden critical illness and coma, along with the dire situation of the West City project, spread like a plague. Panic was rampant. Many executives gathered in the conference room, whispering to each other, their faces filled with anxiety and despair. I pushed open the conference room door and walked in. All eyes instantly focused on me. Surprise, doubt, disdain, and even a barely noticeable hint of schadenfreude. Miss. Someone called out hesitantly, Jenny. I walked to the head of the conference table, the chair that belonged to my father, but did not sit down. Instead, I leaned forward, hands resting on the table, and swept my gaze over everyone present. My father is ill and temporarily unable to oversee operations. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence of the conference room with startling clarity. From now on, I'm in charge here. Someone couldn't hold back a low, derisive chuckle. Miss, this is no time for jokes. A vice president surnamed Lee frowned as he spoke up. Do I look like I'm joking? I cut him off coldly, my gaze sharp as a blade. As the sole heir of Charles James and the acting representative of the largest shareholder, I hereby declare that, effective immediately, I will temporarily assume the chairman's authority and handle all corporate affairs. Anyone who objects may leave now and proceed to HR to process their resignation. The conference room was dead silent. No one moved. No one dared to be the first to speak at this moment, and no one believed that a good-for-nothing young lady like me could stir up any trouble. Very well, I nodded. Now, report the situation. For the C-07 plot in the west of the city, we face two choices: increase investment and build the school according to provincial standards, or breach the contract, lose the deposit and initial investment, and bear the consequences. A wave of murmurs swept through the room below. Additional investment, that would require billions. Where do we have that kind of money right now? Breach of contract, that's even worse. We'd lose billions outright. Plus, we'd have to pay compensation. The banks would definitely pull our loans. We'd be finished. It's all because of those bastards at HY. What's the use of saying all this now? Deputy Mayor Johnson has fallen. The dead tell no tales. Silence. I slammed the table with a loud bang, and the noise made everyone shut their mouths. Additional investment is impossible. Breaching the contract is asking for death. I said resolutely, we choose the third option. The third option. Everyone was stunned. File a lawsuit. I spat out 3 words. A lawsuit. Against whom? The Planning Commission, or that so-called Education Research Center. How could we possibly win? Vice President Lee exclaimed in disbelief. Who said we're suing them? I sneered, picking up the red-headed document labeled Expert Opinion. We're suing this. I pointed to the document's signature, City Education Development Research Center, a third-rate research institution that relies on government funding and writes reports for officials, who gave it the authority to mandate requirements for land allocation standards. What legal basis does it have? I scanned the room and declared. The land transfer contract from the Planning Commission is legally binding. Until the supplementary agreement is signed, everything is subject to the main contract and the bidding documents. The main contract only vaguely states, supporting educational facilities. The standard is ambiguous. This so-called expert opinion is neither a law, a regulation, nor a contractual agreement. It's nothing but hot air. My voice was firm and resounding. Does HY think they can use this hot air to corner us? Dream on. We will immediately file a lawsuit. requesting the court to declare this document from the research center invalid and to issue an injunction preventing the Planning Commission from unilaterally raising the construction standards based on this document. At the same time, we will apply for property preservation regarding the fulfillment of the land transfer contract. The meeting room fell into complete silence. Everyone was staring at me as if I were a monster. Is this still the same Jenny who only knew how to buy bags and chase after men? But, miss, the head of the legal department hesitated. This kind of administrative lawsuit takes a long time, and the other side has backing. I know it takes time, and I know they have backing. I stared at him. What we need is time to muddy the waters. As long as the court accepts the case and issues an injunction during the trial period, the regulatory committee won't be able to force us to sign the supplementary agreement based on this invalid document. We'll have time to catch our breath and maneuver. I turned to the financial director, Mr. Frank, immediately audit all the group's available cash, short-term liquid assets, and bank credit lines. I want the most accurate numbers. Vice President Lee, you are responsible for stabilizing all suppliers and partners. Inform them that the James family is merely facing a minor issue. The chairman is unwell, but the group's operations are running smoothly. Anyone who dares to take advantage of this situation will never have the chance to collaborate with the James family again. Public Relations Department, immediately draft a statement emphasizing that our James family operates in full compliance with the law. Express deep regret over the abnormal administrative interference encountered in the West City project and clarify that we are seeking legal recourse, confident that the law will deliver a fair ruling. The wording should be firm, yet leave room for flexibility. Instructions were issued clearly, one after another. I stood at the head of the conference table, my back to the massive floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the city's countless lights twinkled, while inside, the James family's colossal ship was on the verge of capsizing. My back was ramrod straight, but my palms were drenched in cold sweat. I knew this was only a temporary measure. The lawsuit might not be won, time might not be enough, and the banks and creditors wouldn't wait for me. Weiss methods were certainly not limited to this, but this is the only way I can think of to temporarily stabilize the situation. I must buy time for my father to wake up and give the James family a glimmer of hope. In the days that followed, I worked like a high-speed machine, tirelessly. During the day, I stationed myself at the company, handling all kinds of overwhelming tasks, responding to inquiries from banks and creditors, calming restless hearts, and monitoring the progress of the lawsuits. At night, standing outside the hospital ICU, I watched my father through the glass, his body covered in tubes. While holding my mother's cold hand to give her strength, Simon kept his promise. He contacted a top international team of brain specialists for a remote consultation and provided the most advanced treatment plan. Lucy also stayed by my mother's side without leaving for a moment. This put my mind at ease, but I could sense that Simon's gaze toward me was growing increasingly complex. There was curiosity, scrutiny, and even a hint of unfamiliar wariness. He probably couldn't understand how I, the spoiled and foolish ex-wife in his eyes, could suddenly unleash such astonishing energy and ruthlessness. I had no time to dwell on his thoughts. All my focus was devoted to racing against time and maneuvering through the struggles with the pack of hungry wolves at HY. The cash flow is getting tighter and tighter. Despite my best efforts to reassure everyone, panic is still spreading. Several small suppliers have started to halt deliveries, and collection calls are coming one after another. The situation with the bank is also becoming increasingly tense. Although the lawsuit was successfully filed and the court issued a preliminary injunction stating that, during the litigation, the planning committee shall not enforce the disputed document to require James family to increase the development standards, temporarily preserving the land parcel. But this is only a reprieve. I know HY will not let this go. They must be brewing a more lethal move. A stormy late night, I dragged my exhausted body from the company back to the hospital. My mother, accompanied by Lucy, had fallen asleep in the family waiting room next door, tear stains still visible on her face. I walked to the ICU and looked inside through the glass. Dad is still unconscious, but his vital signs have stabilized a bit. Dad, you have to hang in there, I whispered. Your daughter is holding on. The James family won't fall. Just then, my phone started vibrating frantically. It was a call from a trusted subordinate at the company who was keeping a close watch on HY's movements. Miss James, something terrible has happened." His voice was filled with panic. "Frank, that bastard Frank, just now at the entrance of the Imperial Grand Hotel, he was crying and complaining to several financial reporters. He said our James family has been exploiting small suppliers like him for a long time, delaying payments, and now that we're on the verge of collapse, we're even threatening them not to demand their money." He even produced a few fabricated recordings and transfer records of our group's executives privately demanding huge kickbacks from him. He said he'll report it to the disciplinary commission under his real name tomorrow. Buzz, my mind went blank. Frank, that despicable scoundrel, finally bared his fangs. This is not just a business backstab. It's about nailing the James family to the pillar of shame for illegal activities. It's cutting off the very source of their survival. Once the charge of soliciting bribes is officially investigated, the James family will be truly doomed. The banks will immediately freeze all their assets. I felt a chill run through my entire body, as if I had fallen into an icy abyss. How ruthless. This move completely cut off all escape routes for the James family. I leaned against the cold wall, feeling as if all the strength had been drained from my body. All the efforts, all the struggles, seemed so feeble in the face of the powerful inertia of the plot. Could it be that there's really no escape? A massive despair, like the dark night outside the window, presses down heavily, almost crushing me. The cold wall presses against my back, and the anxious voice of my confidant continues on the phone, but I can no longer make out the words. Frank's betrayal, the fabricated evidence. With this smear campaign, the James family will be completely ruined. Bank loans withdrawn, assets frozen, partnerships collapsing, everything will crumble in an instant. My father is still in the ICU, his life hanging in the balance. My mom, I shuddered violently. No way, I absolutely cannot let Mom find out, given her personality. If she knew that our family is not only on the verge of bankruptcy but also possibly under suspicion of a crime, she would definitely break down. She would do everything in her power to raise money and smooth things over. The events described in that book, selling off jewelry, borrowing from loan sharks, dying in a car accident, would activate like a preset program. I clenched my fists tightly, my nails digging deep into my palms, the sharp pain forcing my chaotic thoughts to focus. Don't panic, Jenny, you can't fall, now, only you can stop all this. I took a deep breath and spoke to my confidant on the other end of the phone, my voice as cold as ice. Listen, first, immediately contact all the media outlets we have close ties with, especially those in the financial sector, no matter the cost. Suppress Frank's performance tonight, at the very least. No reports should leak out tonight. Second, notify the legal and technical departments to work overnight. Conduct a thorough investigation into Frank and all his affiliated companies. Check all his past tax records, contracts, and financial transactions. Dig up all the dirty accounts of his tax evasion, commercial bribery, and passing off inferior products over the years. I want to see enough evidence to send him to jail before dawn. He wants to report someone, let's see who reports whom. Third, prepare the materials for a countersuit. Sue Frank for defamation, false accusation, and commercial fraud. The materials must be solid and quick. I want the lawsuit filed and delivered to the court first thing tomorrow morning. Fourth, contact the owners of those major suppliers we have long-term partnerships with. I'll personally call them right now to keep them steady. Yes, Miss James, I'll get on it immediately. The confidant's voice carried a tone of desperate determination. After hanging up, I immediately flipped through my contacts and started dialing. 1, 2, 3. I lowered my posture but spoke with a firm tone, appealing to emotion and reason, even hinting at Frank's impending downfall and the unwavering determination of the James family to stand strong. Uncle Leo, how has my father treated you all this time? Even if you don't trust others, can't you trust my father's character? Mr. Eric, if you lend the James family a hand now, we will repay you generously in the future. The kindness of offering help in times of need is something I, Jenny, will remember for a lifetime. Uncle Chandler, can the words of a petty man like Frank really be trusted? He's just being used as a pawn by HY. What promises did HY make to you? If they can devour the James family, they can turn around and devour you next. When the lips are gone, the teeth will be cold. One phone call after another was made. My voice went from slightly trembling at first to calm and steady later. even carrying an undeniable force. Sweat soaked through my back, time passed minute by minute. Until the sky outside the window began to lighten, the phone rang again. It was my trusted aide, Miss James. We've suppressed it. Several major media outlets have agreed to delay the reports. Our people have found key evidence of Frank's tax evasion and contract forgery. It's enough to file a case. The counterclaim materials are also ready, and Mr. Eric and President Chien have softened their stance. They've agreed to issue a statement supporting us tomorrow and will not halt supplies for now. Done. I leaned against the wall and let out a long, long sigh of relief. The clothes on my back were completely soaked with cold sweat, clinging icily to my skin. That night, I felt as though I were walking a tightrope over a bottomless abyss, every step fraught with peril. But at least, for now, I had managed to pull James' family back from the brink of collapse. If only by a little. Dawn was approaching. I dragged my leaden legs, wanting to go to the restroom to wash my face. Just as I reached the quiet corner of the corridor, a deliberately lowered, tearful female voice came through. Simon, I'm really scared. Everyone's saying that James's family is finished. Uncle Jiang is so sick. How can Jenny possibly bear all of this alone? It's Susan's voice. I suddenly stopped in my tracks, held my breath, and pressed myself against the cold wall. Simon's voice sounded lower than usual, with a hint of weariness. Don't worry, she'll handle it, but those people are so scary. They're all cursing at Sister Jenny, saying Susan's voice trembled, as if she had been greatly frightened. Simon, could you help Sister Jenny? I know you too, but Uncle James has been so good to you. Susan, Simon interrupted her, his tone somewhat complicated. This is James' family matter, and it's very complicated. And, Jenny, he seemed at a loss for words to describe my current state. She is much tougher than we imagined. She might not even need my help, but, Susan still wanted to say something. All right, Simon's voice softened. You must be frightened, right? I'll have someone take you back to rest. Don't overthink it. Then came the sound of footsteps, as if the two of them had left. I leaned against the wall, my heart still pounding violently. Susan, is she here? How did she know my father is seriously ill? She came to see Simon, to plead for me. This feeling is so damn eerie. The female lead in the book, whom I relentlessly bullied, and who ultimately watched me head toward destruction, is now worried about me and pleading with the male lead on my behalf. Is there something wrong with this plot, or is this also part of the female lead's halo, showcasing her kindness and generosity? I shake my head, pushing away the messy thoughts. Whatever she thinks, I don't have time to think about these things right now. The crisis has only been temporarily alleviated, far from resolved. Frank, this cancer must be removed as soon as possible. After daybreak, I will personally oversee the legal department, the indictment against Frank for defamation, false accusation, and commercial fraud, along with the solid evidence we gathered overnight of his tax evasion, contract forgery, and commercial bribery, was swiftly submitted to the court, the Tax Bureau, and the Administration for Industry and Commerce. With lightning speed, at the same time, I instructed the Public Relations Department to issue an extremely stern statement, condemning Frank for malicious defamation, fabricating facts, and attempting to take advantage of the situation, and announcing that legal proceedings have been initiated to hold him fully accountable under the law. At 10 a.m., a joint inspection team from the Tax Bureau and the Administration for Industry and Commerce, based on reported leads, directly entered Frank's company. Frank probably never dreamed that the cold arrow he had just released, before it could even scratch the surface of the James family, would be met with a swift and thunderous counterattack. His company's accounts couldn't withstand scrutiny at all. By the afternoon, rumors were spreading that Frank had been taken away for assisting in an investigation. The carefully prepared hidden arrow by HY Group was snapped in mid-air by me. The news reached the James family, lifting the low spirits. Those previously wavering suppliers and partners, seeing the James family's fierce and swift counterattack, temporarily set aside their cautious thoughts. The attitude from the bank also seemed to subtly ease a bit. I sat in my father's office, rubbing my throbbing temples. The sunlight outside the window is glaring. Days of relentless, high-intensity confrontation without rest have pushed both body and mind to their limits. The slightest relaxation of the tense nerves brings overwhelming fatigue. Like a tidal wave, but I still cannot rest. The lawsuit for the West City project is still ongoing, Dad's medical expenses, the company's daily operations, bank interest, every day brings enormous costs, money, James's family's cash flow has been stretched to its limit, my mother's jewelry box. That thought suddenly and uncontrollably surfaced. In the book, it was written that she sold all her jewelry to raise money. My heart suddenly tightened. No way, absolutely not. I immediately picked up the internal phone and called the chief financial officer, Mr. Frank. Immediately make a list of all the jewelry and valuables under my mother's name. Not a single item is to be touched. No one can move them without my personal signature, including my mother herself. Is that clear? Yes, Miss James, Mr. Frank replied promptly. After hanging up the phone, I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Selling jewelry, borrowing from loan sharks, don't even think about it. The James family hasn't reached that point yet. Even if we were truly desperate and had to sell something, it would be mine to sell. I still have a few apartments, some sports cars, and some funds and stocks under my name, though it's just a drop in the bucket. It should hold up for a while. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment and answered. Hello, Jenny. The voice on the other end of the line was that of a young man, somewhat familiar. With a hint of playful laughter, it's me, Andy Lewis. Andy Lewis. I paused for a moment before remembering, the youngest son of the Lewis family, a well-known playboy in the circle, obsessed with car racing, and from a family that literally owns mines. We were acquaintances. Having met at various parties before. Why is he looking for me? Something wrong? I asked coldly. Heard you've been not doing so well lately. Andy Lewis's tone was probing. Not dead yet, I shot back bluntly. TSK. Still as sharp-tongued as ever. Andy Lewis didn't seem bothered. Need money? My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I heard your project in the west of the city is stuck. Need money to keep things moving. Andy Lewis got straight to the point. I happen to have some spare cash on hand that I can lend you. As for the interest, we can work something out. A pie falling from the sky? No, it's a weasel paying New Year's greetings to a chicken. The Lewis family is very close to the HY group. What are the conditions? I asked coldly. Straight to the point. Andy Lewis laughed. It's nothing much. Just, I heard you hold 10% of the dry shares in the Legion Bay Resort project. I quite like that place. How about transferring them to me for fun? Don't worry, I'll pay the market price, and we can settle any difference later. Legion Bay. My heart sank. That's the only high-quality asset in James's family with stable cash flow and promising prospects. It's the bottom of the chest dowry my father left for me. Andy Lewis, or rather, the HY behind him, has such a big appetite. Not only does he want the land in the west of the city, but he also wants to take a bite out of the juiciest piece of the James family's assets. Mr. Joe, I sneered. You're quite well informed. However, I'm keeping those shares in Legion Bay for my retirement. Your spare money should be lent to someone else. Don't be so quick to refuse, Andy Lewis said leisurely. Why not think it over? Besides me, who else would dare lend money to the James family now? The banks, or those loan sharks waiting to bleed you dry? Loan sharks. These three words stung me like a needle. In the book, my mother was on her way to borrow from a loan shark. Don't bother, I said coldly. A loan shark, Jenny, would rather sell my blood than touch that stuff. With that, I hung up the phone directly. My heart is pounding in my chest. Andy Lewis's call was like a wake-up call, reminding me that the enemies in the shadows have never stopped coveting, and the situation at the James family is even more dangerous than I imagined. The funding chain could break at any moment. What should I do? Sell my apartment, my sports car, a drop in the bucket? Could it be that I really have to borrow? No, a thought suddenly struck my mind like a bolt of lightning. That diary, the diary that foretold my tragic fate, there are still blank pages behind it. Since it can foretell, could it also change? Once this crazy thought arose, it could no longer be suppressed. Like clutching at the last straw, I rushed out of the office like a madwoman and drove back to the home I shared with Simon. I dashed into the guest bedroom and rummaged through the bottom of the wardrobe, pulling out that hardcover, gold-embossed diary I had deliberately forgotten and hidden away. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I took a deep breath and abruptly opened it. I flipped directly to the last few blank pages. I grabbed a pen, my hand trembling so violently that the ink smudged into a blot on the paper. I struggled to steady my wrist, mustering all my strength, and on that blank page, I wrote, word by word, James Family Group secures key investment, overcomes crisis, after writing. I held my breath and stared intently at that page. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, no change at all. The black ink lay there silently, as if mocking me without a sound. Indeed, was I overthinking it? This diary, can it only foretell, but not change? Immense disappointment and deeper despair instantly consumed me. I slumped to the floor, leaning my back against the cold edge of the bed, the diary slipping to the side. All my strength had vanished. Is there really no way out? Just then, buzz. Buzz. My phone was vibrating wildly in my pocket. I pulled it out numbly. The name flashing on the screen made my pupils contract sharply. It was Simon's personal lawyer, Attorney Chan. What does he want from me? I answered the call, my voice dry. Attorney Chan, Miss James. Attorney Chan's voice was filled with an unbelievable excitement and urgency. Good news. Incredibly good news. Good news. What could possibly be considered good news for me now? Mr. Smith has just added a codicil to his will. Lawyer Chan's voice trembled with excitement. He has designated a 15% share of the DF Venture Capital Fund, held under his personal name, as a gift to you, as a blessing for your marriage to Mr. Simon. The document has just been notarized. It is legally binding. DF Venture Capital, a 15% share. My mind buzzed. A complete blank. DF Venture Capital is a large private equity fund established by the Smith family patriarch in his early years. In collaboration with several old friends, it has invested in countless high-quality projects, boasts an extremely robust cash flow, and represents the most core and valuable asset within the Shin family's vast holdings, a 15% share. That's worth, Lawyer Chan. How much is it worth? My voice sounded distant, as if it weren't my own, based on the net value estimate at the end of the last quarter. Lawyer Chan quoted an astronomical figure. That number, like a thunderbolt, split apart the heavy gloom that had been hanging over my head. Enough, more than enough to cover the current funding gap in the James family, even with plenty to spare, old Mr. Smith said. Attorney Chan paused, his tone turning somewhat emotional. He has been keeping an eye on you, he said. Your recent performance reminded him of Brother James, my father, in his younger days. This is his way of showing a bit of support to the younger generation, old Mr. Smith. That usually stern and reticent old man, who wasn't particularly close to me, his former granddaughter-in-law who had forced her way into marrying his grandson, a tremendous, overwhelming joy of having survived a disaster, mixed with indescribably complex emotions, instantly shattered my nerves, which had been stretched to the breaking point. Tears, unexpectedly, gushed forth, not from sorrow. It was the exhaustion after the release of pressure, the lingering fear of a narrow escape, and a kind of bittersweet ache of being acknowledged. I collapsed onto the floor, leaning against the bed, clutching my phone, sobbing uncontrollably. The funding issue has been resolved. The James family's home is temporarily secure. With trembling hands, I picked up the diary that had slipped to the floor. I turned to the page where I had just written, the James Group secured critical funding and overcame the crisis. The black ink still lay there quietly, but in a daze. I seemed to see that line of text glow faintly. Was it my imagination, or perhaps it really had an effect? I squeezed my eyes shut tightly, then opened them again. The handwriting remains the same, but in a corner of my heart, something seems to have quietly shifted. No matter what, I made it through this challenge. Dad is still in a coma, but the doctor says his condition is improving. Mom, though worn out, is mentally stable. The ship of the James family, though battered and bruised, has not sunk and is still sailing on with difficulty. And Simon and I, since that night when I overheard his conversation with Susan in the hallway, we haven't spoken again. He helped me contact the specialist, arranged for someone to take care of my mom, and, indirectly, through his grandfather, gave me the most crucial support. But between us, there seems to be an invisible, thick wall of ice. I've been busy trying to save the James family, and he's probably occupied with his own career and taking care of Susan's feelings. It doesn't matter anymore. After going through all this, My obsession with Simon has long since vanished. Now, all I want is for my father to wake up. And for the James family to recover, then, to stay as far away as possible from that male and female lead couple. However, fate seems to think the trials it has given me are not enough. On the third day after my father was out of critical condition and transferred from the ICU to a VIP room, even more unexpected news arrived. My trusted confidant, responsible for keeping an eye on H. Weiss movements, reported to me with a strange tone, "Miss James, that, Miss Susan, she seems to have gotten into trouble, an accident." My heart sank. What happened? It seems, it was a car accident. It happened at the intersection near the company. She was hit by an electric scooter that ran a red light. She lost consciousness on the spot and was taken to the hospital. A car accident. In the book, it was my mom who got into the car accident. Now it's Susan. The plot has deviated. Is it serious? Which hospital? I immediately asked. It's at the City First Hospital near US. The injuries are quite severe, a fractured leg and a mild concussion. The person hasn't woken up yet. I hung up the phone, feeling conflicted. Susan was in a car accident. As the female lead in the book, she shouldn't be in any life-threatening danger, right? But, does Simon know? I hesitated for a moment but still dialed Simon's number. It rang for a long time before he finally answered, his voice noticeably tired and hoarse. "Hello, it's me." I paused. I heard, Susan was in a car accident. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. Simon's voice was very low. "Just finished the surgery. Still hasn't woken up. Is it serious?" "Comminuted fracture of the left calf, mild concussion." Simon's voice was restrained with emotion. "It will take a long time to recover." "Comminuted fracture. For a young girl, this blow is too heavy." "Which hospital? Do you need help?" I asked instinctively, and even I felt a bit hypocritical after saying it. "No need." Simon refused bluntly, his tone even carrying a hint of distant coldness. "I'll handle it." I was momentarily speechless. "Is there anything else?" he asked. "No, you, take care," I said dryly. He responded and hung up the phone. Listening to the busy tone on the phone, I felt somewhat lost. Simon's attitude is strange. He should be very distressed and anxious about Susan's injury, but just now on the phone, aside from exhaustion, I seemed to detect a hint of irritation, or even a barely noticeable resentment. Who is he resenting? Blame the electric scooter that hit her, blame fate, or blame me? This thought struck me as absurd and chilling. What does this have to do with me? I shook my head, dismissing these pointless thoughts. Susan's injury, though an accident, might not be a bad thing for me. At the very least, Simon's attention would be tied up with her, leaving him no time to look after his ex-wife for a while. I can focus more on handling the James family's affairs. A few days later, my father's condition has stabilized a lot. Although he hasn't woken up yet, the doctor says he is recovering well. My mother's spirits have also improved, and she spends most of her time in the hospital room with my father. I took some time to go to the company to handle the backlog of tasks. The injection of that huge sum of funds from DF Venture Capital was like a shot in the arm, completely stabilizing the James family's footing. The bank's attitude did a 180-degree turn, proactively offering to renew the loan. The suppliers also became friendly. The lawsuit over the West City project is beginning to tilt in our favor, as we hold key evidence, the recordings of H. Weiss internal collusion provided by Frank's defection, as well as evidence of the research center's procedural illegality. Everything seems to be moving in a positive direction. In the evening, after finishing the last document, I prepared to go to the hospital. Just as I stepped out of the elevator, my phone rang. It was Simon. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello, where are you?" Simon's voice sounded unusually tired, even dejected. "Downstairs at the company, about to head to the hospital." "Can we meet?" he asked, his voice low and hoarse. "I'm at Cloud Cafe." Cloud Cafe is on the top floor of the building next to our company. It has a nice atmosphere, and we used to go there occasionally. His tone made me feel something was off. "Let's talk over the phone if there's something to discuss." I didn't want to meet him alone. "About Susan." Simon was silent for a few seconds before uttering 3 words. "Susan." My heart tightened. "Has her condition worsened? What happened to her?" "Let's talk in person," Simon insisted. "It's important." his tone left me no room for refusal. Okay. 10 minutes later, I was seated by the window at Cloud. The glow of the setting sun bathed the city in a warm golden hue. Simon sat across from me. After not seeing him for a few days, he looked terribly haggard, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin. He exuded a strong sense of exhaustion and an indescribable heaviness. Susan, I tentatively began. Her leg might not be saved. Simon's voice was dry, like sandpaper grating. I stared in shock. My eyes wide. What? I thought it was just a comminuted fracture. The surgery. The surgery was successful. Simon interrupted me, his eyes hollow as he stared out the window. But the post-operative infection, it's severe. It led to complications. The doctor said the best outcome would be amputation. Amputation. I covered my mouth, gasping in shock. Susan, the pure and kind-hearted female lead in the book who eventually finds happiness, is going to lose a limb. This plot is just too ridiculously messed up. How could it be this serious? I couldn't believe it. I don't know. Simon shook his head, burying his hands in his hair and tugging hard, his voice filled with pain and helplessness. The doctor said her constitution is a bit special. She reacts poorly to antibiotics. The infection just won't be controlled. He suddenly lifted his head, his bloodshot eyes fixed on me with an intensity that was overwhelmingly complex, filled with pain, despair, struggle, and something else, a chilling scrutiny that made my heart race. Jenny, he called my name, his voice hoarse. Tell me, does Susan's car accident have anything to do with you, Buzz? My mind felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer. Blood rushed to my head in an instant. Simon, what do you mean? I stood up abruptly, my voice rising with extreme anger and disbelief. You suspect me? The few customers in the cafe were startled and turned to look. Simon also stood up, his gaze cutting across the table like a knife on my face. That day, at that intersection, his voice was suppressed with a storm. Someone saw your car, right behind her. My car. I try hard to recall that day. That afternoon, I did indeed drive out from the company, heading to the hospital, passing by that intersection. Yes, I did pass by. I trembled with anger, but I never saw Susan. How could I possibly have hit her? Simon, are you insane? What motive would I have to hit her? Motive? Simon gave an extremely ugly, almost cruel smile. Jenny, you've changed. You've become someone I don't recognize at all. For the sake of the James family, what wouldn't you do? Susan, she always felt guilty, thinking she ruined our marriage. She even spoke up for you in front of me. But you, he took a step closer, his gaze as sharp as a hawk's. You hate her, don't you? You hate that she stole my attention, hate that she made my grandfather look at you differently, so you took revenge on her, didn't you? Bullshit. I was completely enraged, grabbing the water glass on the table and wanting to throw it at him, but the last shred of reason made me grip the glass tightly, my fingertips turning white. Simon, listen to me, I said through gritted teeth, word by word. Jenny, have changed. I've given my all for the James family, but I'm not low enough to run someone over with a car, especially someone who has no grudge against me. Don't believe me? Fine. Call the police, check the surveillance, check the dashcam, check whatever you want. My anger and frankness seemed to make the madness in Simon's eyes fade a little. He looked at me, his eyes filled with intense struggle, a mix of pain and doubt. Then why? His voice trailed off, heavy with exhaustion and confusion. Why her? Why now of all times? How should I know? I yelled back, my chest heaving. Simon, I'm telling you, Jenny, have no time or interest to deal with your mess with Susan right now. I wish I could stay as far away from you as possible, believe it or not. With that, I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. One more second and I'm afraid I'll really lose control and throw the water glass at his face. I walked to the door, stopped in my tracks, and without looking back, coldly tossed out a sentence. And one more thing, Simon, let's get a divorce. I'll have the lawyer prepare the agreement and send it to you as soon as possible. From now on, we go our separate ways. I pulled the door open and strode out. The door closed behind me, shutting out Simon's complicated gaze. The wind outside was a bit chilly. I leaned against the cold wall, only to realize my whole body was trembling, not out of fear. It was out of anger, out of the injustice of being misunderstood, and a deep, deep sense of sorrow. Is this the world of the book? No matter how I struggle, no matter how I try to stay away, those plot lines, those misunderstandings, those melodramatic conflicts still find their way to me in one form or another. Was Susan's car accident really an accident, or the force of the plot forcibly correcting itself? I looked up, watching the setting sun gradually sink below the city skyline. The orange-red light carried a kind of cruel tenderness. No, I cannot fall. Dad hasn't woken up yet. Jane's family is not yet completely out of danger. Jenny will never admit defeat. After the unpleasant parting with Simon at the cafe, I went straight back to the hospital. My mom was startled when she saw my grim expression. Jenny, what's wrong? Did something happen at the company again? Nothing, Mom. I forced a smile. I'm just a bit tired. I can't tell her about Simon's despicable words. In the days that followed, I handled company affairs, took care of my parents, and had my lawyer start preparing the divorce agreement. As for Simon, he hasn't contacted me since that day. I did hear that Susan's condition has stabilized, the infection is under control, but her leg ultimately couldn't be saved and she had to undergo an amputation. This news weighed heavily on my heart. Although I don't like her, for a young girl to lose a leg, it's just too devastating. Fate seems to have been excessively cruel to her. The plot in the book has completely fallen apart. My survive and protect the family plan seems to have succeeded, yet it also seems to have brought about more unknown variables. One afternoon, half a month later, I was accompanying my dad for hyperbaric oxygen therapy at the hospital. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar local number. I walked to the hallway and answered. Hello, Jenny. It was a woman's voice on the other end, very calm, even a bit weak. I paused for a moment. This voice, Susan, I was a bit uncertain. It's me. Susan's voice was soft. Can we meet right now? Meet me? I frowned. What's the matter? Something very important. Her tone carried an undeniable insistence. About you, me, and this world. My heart skipped a beat. This world. What did she find out? Where are you? City First Hospital, rooftop of the inpatient building. I'll be waiting for you. After saying that, she hung up the phone. The rooftop. My heart instantly leaped into my throat. In the book, isn't the final outcome of the villainous Jenny to be driven to desperation and jump off the building from the rooftop? Susan asked me to meet her on the rooftop. What does she want to do? A chill ran down my spine. Go, or not go? Go. There might be danger. Not going. The meaning behind her words is something I can't ignore. After struggling for a few seconds, I gritted my teeth. I'll go. In broad daylight. On the hospital rooftop. What could she, a patient who just had an amputation, possibly do to me? I'm curious to see what trick she has up her sleeve. I told my mom there was an emergency at the company and hurriedly left the hospital, driving straight to City First Hospital. I took the elevator to the top floor, pushed open the heavy fire door, and stepped out onto the empty rooftop. The evening wind was strong, carrying the chill of early autumn, making clothes flap loudly. I spotted Susan at a glance. She sat in a wheelchair, her back to me, facing the city's twilight scenery. She wore a loose hospital gown, the left leg of her pants hanging empty. Her figure was so frail it seemed a gust of wind could blow her away. Hearing the footsteps, she slowly turned her wheelchair around. Seeing her face, I was taken aback. She had lost a lot of weight, her face pale to the point of transparency, but her eyes were unusually bright, clear, and carried a calmness that seemed to see through everything, completely devoid of the timidity and evasiveness of the past. This gaze was too unfamiliar. You're here. She looked at me, her voice soft, slightly wavering in the wind. What do you want from me? I stood a few meters away from her, remaining cautious. Susan didn't answer immediately. She turned her wheelchair and slowly approached the low wall at the edge of the rooftop. My heart instantly leaped into my throat. Susan. What are you doing? I cried out, instinctively rushing forward a couple of steps. Susan stood by the low wall, her hand resting on the cold surface. She didn't look at me, her gaze fixed on the distant rows of towering buildings and the winding streams of traffic. Jenny, she suddenly spoke, her tone eerily calm. Do you know why I got into that car accident? How would I know? I frowned. She turned her head, looked at me, and a strange, almost sorrowful smile curled at the corner of her lips. Because I saw it that day. Saw what? I saw you. Her gaze sharpened. I saw you driving, following behind me. My heart sank instantly. Not this again. I told you, I was just passing by. I didn't see you at all. There's no way I could have. No, Susan interrupted me, shaking her head gently. I'm not saying you hit me. I mean, I saw you. And then, a voice suddenly echoed in my mind. Voice. I was stunned, a cold, mechanical voice. Susan's eyes grew somewhat vacant. As if she were recalling something, it said, detected key plot character, the villainous Jenny, behavior severely deviates from the setting, threatening the stability of the world line, initiating correction program. Boom, my mind felt like it had been hit by an atomic bomb. Key plot character, villainous, behavior deviation, correction program. These words, what did you say? My voice trembled. Susan looked at me, her expression incredibly complex, pity, sorrow, and a hint of shared suffering. Jenny, you've known all along, haven't you? She asked softly, that we're living in a book, that you're the tragic villainess destined for misery, and I am the heroine who steps over your bones to find happiness. My body swayed, almost losing balance. She really knew. So, that car accident, I struggled to speak, my throat tight. It was a correction, Susan said calmly, as if speaking of something unrelated to herself. That voice, I call it the system. It said that because I, as the female lead, developed an inappropriate sympathy and guilt toward you, the deviant villainess, and even tried to influence the male lead, Simon's attitude toward you, it severely disrupted the plot's progression. So, it had to correct me, using pain to make me remember my identity and mission. She gestured with the empty left leg of her pants. It worked. Her voice held little emotion. I lost a leg, but I've completely come to my senses. I was utterly shocked. System, correction, because Susan felt sympathy for me. So you came to me today. I looked at her warily, then glanced toward the edge of the rooftop. Don't be nervous. Susan forced a smile, which looked more painful than a cry. I'm not here to drag you down with me. That system disappeared after I woke up from the amputation surgery. Maybe it decided that I, the female lead, am now incomplete, and have lost my value, or perhaps its correction is complete. She gazed into the distance, her eyes somewhat dazed. I came to you to tell you the truth, she said, turning back to me, her focus returning to my face, and also, to ask you for a favor. What is it? Help me. Susan's gaze turned unusually serious. Help me leave Simon. I was stunned once again. Leave Simon? Why, isn't he your male lead? Male lead? Susan laughed, her smile full of sarcasm and bitterness. Jenny, don't you get it? We're all just puppets on strings, pre-programmed. My kindness, resilience, love for the male lead, it's all written code. I'm like an NPC with a preset path, forced to follow the plot, fall in love with Simon, endure your bullying, and then find redemption and happiness as he avenges me and ruins the James family. Her emotions surged, her chest rising and falling slightly. But why? Her voice trembled with tears. Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to lose my leg, just to fulfill that damn predetermined love and happiness? After the car accident, that system disappeared. It felt like I suddenly woke up from a long nightmare. Her eyes regained that strange clarity. I watched Simon in pain and self-blame at my bedside, taking meticulous care of me. I saw him blaming you, questioning you because of my leg. I felt nothing, no love, no emotion, not even hatred, she stated calmly. It was like watching a play that had nothing to do with me. I knew. According to the plot, I should be moved, I should forgive him, I should stick together through thick and thin with him, but I couldn't. She looked up, her eyes burning as she gazed at me. Jenny, you broke free from your storyline. Although the cost was great, you did it. Now, I want to break free from mine too. I don't want to be the predestined female lead who must love Simon anymore. I want to leave him, leave this pre-written story. Please, help me. The wind on the rooftop tousled her hair. She sat in the wheelchair, looking up at me, her eyes filled with a desperate plea. I look at her pale, gaunt face, at her empty pant legs, at the fire in her eyes that refuses to be subdued by fate, as if seeing another version of myself, the one struggling in despair, fighting with all her might to rewrite the ending. We are both prisoners, however. She had just been painfully awakened from a prearranged beautiful dream. How do you want me to help you? I heard my own voice speak. Susan's eyes instantly lit up, as if she had grabbed onto a lifeline. Help me leave this place. Take me somewhere where no one knows me, she said urgently. Simon, he's so full of guilt toward me now. He's practically watching my every move. I can't take it anymore. If this goes on, I'm afraid I'll go crazy. I have a small apartment under my name, in the northern part of the city. It's very quiet, and Simon doesn't know about it, I said thoughtfully. You could stay there for the time being. No, Susan shook her head immediately. He'll find me soon enough. He's very controlling, especially in a situation like this. That was true. In the book, Simon's protectiveness and possessiveness towards Susan bordered on obsession. Then, what about going abroad? I tentatively suggested. Susan lowered her head, her voice growing softer. I don't have the money, my family is very ordinary, and my leg requires follow-up treatment and rehabilitation, which also costs money, a practical issue. I looked at her and remained silent for a few seconds. I can lend you the money, I said, consider it a debt. You can pay me back when you're able to. Susan suddenly looked up, her eyes reddening in disbelief. You're really willing to help me, not to help you. I averted my gaze, looking at the gradually brightening city lights in the distance. It's to help myself. Help yourself, she asked, confused. I'm helping you leave Simon, to escape this whirlpool of drama, I said calmly, and in doing so, I'm helping myself break free from the past. Once you're gone, Simon's attention will naturally shift. Only then can he and I have a clean divorce. The James family can finally cut all ties with the Smith family. We're using each other, I suppose, I concluded. Susan looked at me, tears finally falling, but she smiled and nodded vigorously. All right, using each other. Thank you, Jenny. In her smile, there were tears, there was pain, but even more so, there was relief and the hope of a new beginning. A week later, under the meticulous arrangements, Susan disappeared. She left a letter for Simon, the gist of which was to thank him for his care, but the loss of her leg had hit her too hard. She needed to be alone and start over in an unfamiliar place, and she asked him not to look for her. Simon indeed went mad. He used all the connections he could and searched for Susan like a madman, but there was no trace of her. I had Susan secretly sent to a pleasant coastal town in the south with good medical facilities, where she checked into a highly private rehabilitation center. I prepaid a sum sufficient to cover her living and rehabilitation expenses for several years. Simon couldn't find Susan and became even more gloomy and irritable. He probably directed all his anger and frustration toward me. It was at this moment that my divorce agreement lawyer's letter was delivered to him. The outcome was predictable. He refused to sign. Not only did he refuse, but he also made it clear that I should take responsibility for Susan's disappearance. For a while, rumors spread like wildfire in the circle. Things like, Jenny, driven by jealousy, forced Susan to leave, and, young Master Shen, enraged for his beloved, is about to sever all ties with the James family. These rumors, although they don't have a significant impact on the James family's business, after all, the hardest times are already over, are like flies, annoying and persistent. I know that Simon and I must have a final resolution, otherwise, the consequences will be endless. I took the initiative to ask Simon out. The location was the same, Cloud Cafe, where he had once questioned me about whether I had hit Susan, the same spot, the same sunset. Simon arrived. He looked even more haggard than before, with a gloomy and hostile glare in his eyes. Jenny, where on earth have you hidden Susan? He demanded the moment he sat down, his tone aggressive and confrontational. I haven't hidden her, I replied calmly, meeting his gaze. She's an adult and has the right to choose the life she wants. The life she wants, Simon sneered, his eyes sharp as poison daggers. She lost a leg. Where could she possibly go? What kind of life could she have? Jenny, don't play games with me. Did you force her to leave? Did you threaten her? Simon, I sighed, feeling deeply exhausted. In your eyes, am I really that despicable? Would I go so far as to threaten a girl who just lost her leg, just to break the two of you apart? Isn't it true? Simon slammed the table, drawing the attention of those around him. You've changed since the wedding day. You've been scheming and calculating every step of the way. You used my grandfather's sympathy to get the money and secure the James family. And now, who knows what methods you used to force Susan away. Jenny, what is your heart even made of? His accusations were like blunt knives, cutting into my heart, but I no longer felt the pain. Simon, I said, looking directly into his furious eyes, word by word, let's get a divorce. Bullshit, Simon growled, before Susan is found, don't even think about it, this marriage is over. My tone was resolute. Susan's departure has nothing to do with me, but her leaving proves one thing. Proves what? It proves she never wanted to stay by your side. I stated calmly, Simon, wake up. Is what you feel for Susan love, or is it just possessiveness, just because she's the female lead you set yourself to obtain, just like how you had to marry me, the villainous setting, female lead? What nonsense are you talking about? Simon frowned, clearly not understanding my metaphor. It's fine if you don't understand. I shook my head. You just need to know that forced love is not sweet. Susan doesn't want to be with you. She chose to leave, and I never loved you either. Our marriage was a mistake from the very beginning, a twisted product of the interests binding the James and Smith families. Now, it's time to end it. I took the newly drafted divorce agreement out of my bag and pushed it toward him. Sign it. The division of assets is clear. I only want what I deserve. As for the joint projects between the James and Smith families, I will gradually withdraw from them. We'll owe each other nothing. Simon stared fixedly at the agreement. Then abruptly looked up at me, his eyes filled with anger, resentment, and a hint of the embarrassment of being exposed. Jenny, what do you really want? His voice lowered, carrying a defeated hoarseness. I want freedom, I replied calmly. I want the James family to be safe. I want to stay away from all of you, away from us. Simon mulled over the words, his gaze turning somewhat bewildered. Yes, I stood up. Simon, let Susan go, and let yourself go too. Sign the papers and have your lawyer contact me. After saying that, I didn't look at him again. I picked up my bag, turned around, and left. This time, I didn't look back. I knew that Simon, the twisted past in this book, and I had finally come to an end. 1 month later, under the covert pressure from old Mr. Smith, who was clearly dissatisfied with Simon's stubbornness and persistent entanglement, Simon eventually signed the divorce agreement. The moment I received the divorce certificate, I felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off my shoulders. Stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, the sunlight was a bit glaring. I raised my hand to shield myself. Jenny, a familiar and excited voice called out. I turned to look in the direction of the sound. I saw my mother supporting a figure, standing under the shade of a tree not far away, waving vigorously at me. That figure, though still somewhat weak and needing support, stood perfectly straight. It's my dad, Charles James. He's awake. And he can stand up. Dad. My tears instantly welled up, and like a little girl, I rushed over without a second thought, throwing myself into his arms. Whoa, slow down, slow down. My dad laughed, his voice still a bit hoarse but full of strength. He stretched out his big hands, just like when I was a child, and caught me steadily, gently patting my back. Dad, you're finally awake. You scared me to death. I sobbed uncontrollably, crying out all the grievances, fears, stress, and exhaustion I had been holding in. Silly girl. My dad's voice also choked up. Dad knows everything. You've suffered. It's Dad's fault for being useless. No, Dad. It's good that you're awake. It's just good that you're awake. I held him tightly, feeling the warmth and support that had been lost and regained. My mother wiped away tears beside me, a relieved smile on her face. All right, it's a joyous day. Why cry? Your father is recovering well. The doctor said with proper rehabilitation, he'll be able to walk just fine in the future. Let's go home. Mom will make your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs. Yes, let's go home. I smiled through my tears. Home, my home is still here. Half a year later, the lawsuit over the West Project ended with the James family's group achieving a complete victory. The court ruled the expert opinion invalid, and the planning committee ultimately signed a supplementary agreement with the James family based on the standard criteria for municipal model schools. The project was able to proceed smoothly. The HY group's attempt to gain an advantage backfired, damaging their reputation and costing them their pawn. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Although the James family's group suffered significant losses, under my leadership, they decisively sold several non-core assets to raise funds and refocus on their main business. With the continuous financial support from DF Venture Capital, they finally recovered and got back on track. My father has recovered well, although he still walks a bit slowly. He has already returned to the company to take charge and back me up. I, on the other hand, have stepped back to a secondary role, holding a nominal position with little responsibility. After going through so much, I really have no interest in running a business empire anymore. Using the remaining savings in my name, along with the money from selling a few sports cars, I leased a small storefront in a quiet art district in the western part of the city. The decor style is the minimalist wood theme I love, with large floor-to-ceiling windows that let sunlight flood the entire space. In the shop, there are some quirky, niche design pieces I've collected from around the world, as well as works by local emerging artists. The shop's name is simple, Jenny. I don't expect it to make a fortune. Here is my sanctuary, the new world I have built for myself. Afternoon, I sit in the rocking chair by the window, holding a stray cat I picked up, basking in the sun, and reading a casual book. The wind chimes gently ring. Welcome, I said without looking up. Boss, business is booming, huh? A somewhat familiar male voice, tinged with laughter, rang out. I raised my head. Backlit by the light, a tall man in a light gray casual suit stood at the door, holding what looked like a huge fruit basket. It was Andy Lewis. His face wore that same roguish smile, but his eyes seemed a bit more composed than they had been 6 months ago. Andy, what a rare guest. I put down the book and the cat, standing up, here to buy something, or to collect a debt. Look at you. Saying that, Andy Lewis walked in, placing a fruit basket on the nearby coffee table. Do I seem like such a petty person? I heard you opened a shop, so I came to show some support, and, to see you. He glanced around the small shop, his gaze settling on a few boldly colored abstract paintings on the wall. Good taste, thanks for the compliment. I poured him a glass of water. Andy doesn't visit without a reason, just say what's on your mind. TSK, still so direct. Andy Lewis took the water but didn't drink it. Leaning against the counter and looking at me, I heard, you and Simon are completely done. Yeah, I nodded, not wanting to elaborate. Susan is gone too? He asked again. Tisk, that guy Simon, he's really... Andy Lewis shook his head with a gleeful expression. All alone now, with a temper so foul he snaps at everyone. It has nothing to do with me anymore, I said calmly. Yes, it has nothing to do with you anymore. Andy Lewis smiled, then changed the subject. Actually, I came today to apologize to you. Apologize? I raised an eyebrow. Yeah, Andy Lewis, for once, dropped his usual carefree demeanor and spoke more seriously. 6 months ago, when James' family was at their lowest, was persuaded by people from HY to take advantage of the situation, I tried to use the loan to pressure you into giving up shares in Legion Bay. It was not the right thing to do. I've been wanting to find a chance to say sorry to you. I looked at him with some surprise. Andy Lewis, actually apologizing, it's all in the past. I waved my hand dismissively. Business is like a battlefield, everyone uses their own methods, no need to take it to heart. Young Master Lewis, you're quite magnanimous. Andy Lewis chuckled, reverting to his usual lazy demeanor. But even though I, Andy Lewis, may be a bit of a troublemaker, I always repay a debt of gratitude. If anything comes up with your little shop in the future, or, if you, Miss James, ever need someone to run an errand, just say the word. All right, I smiled too. Then I'll thank young Master Lewis first. Andy Lewis stayed for a while longer, bought a small painting, saying he'd hang it in his study when he got back, and then, carrying an empty fruit basket, the fruit inside had been forced upon me by him under the guise of visiting a patient, he ambled away. The wind chimes tinkled softly again. The shop returned to tranquility. The sunlight filtered through the glass window, casting warm patches of light on the floor. I picked up the lazy cat again and sat back in the rocking chair. The phone vibrated once. It was a message, from an unfamiliar number, but I knew who it was. Sister Jenny, I'm doing well here. Rehabilitation is tough, but I make a little progress every day. The sunset by the sea is beautiful. Thank you for giving me a chance at a new life. I will slowly repay the money I owe you. "Don't worry about me, Susan." Attached to the text was a photo. In the photo, the sparkling sea and the golden sunset were captured. A seagull flew by. A girl in a long dress sat in a wheelchair, her back to the camera, facing the sea. The sea breeze lifted her long hair and the hem of her skirt. Although I couldn't see her face, I could feel a serene, hopeful strength. I looked at the empty space where her left calf should have been, covered by the skirt, and my heart still felt a little heavy. But more than that, there was a sense of relief. We had both broken free. She broke free from the shackles of the protagonist and walked toward an unknown yet entirely her own future. As for me, I put down my phone and looked out the window at the bustling street, the warm sunlight shining on me. The cat in my arms purred contentedly. The wind chimes occasionally tinkled softly, stirred by the breeze from customers opening the door. I picked up the hardcover, gold-embossed diary. It lay quietly in the drawer of the counter. I opened it. The first half contained the eerie, printed text foretelling my tragic fate. The latter part contained some things I recorded later: the company's crisis, my father's illness, the injection of funds, the conversation with Susan, the divorce. All the handwriting is my own. I turned to the last blank page, picked up the pen, thought for a moment, and carefully wrote, "Jenny's little shop. The sunshine is lovely today, the cat is napping, Susan is watching the sunset by the sea, Dad is in a meeting, Mom is learning flower arranging, everything is just right." After writing, I looked at those words. Sunlight streamed through the glass window, falling on the paper, the black ink shimmering faintly. As if imbued with a certain warm vitality, I closed the diary. This time, I didn't hide it away again. Instead, I placed it in a prominent spot on the bookshelf, like a small monument, commemorating that absurd, struggling past that we ultimately rewrote with our own hands. I picked up the cat and walked to the large floor-to-ceiling window. Outside the window, people were coming and going. Everyone was in a hurry, rushing toward their own stories. I lowered my head and nuzzled the soft top of the cat's head. This time, I wrote the script myself. The sunlight was a bit harsh. I squinted my eyes, but the corners of my mouth lifted slightly. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share